That was great work on the part of everyone who did that.
Recording in progress.
And I'd like to welcome those of us attending to the Tips and Tricks SIG August edition. And our typical format will be an open forum, and then we have a series of topics that we can go over, and a wrap up, and off we go. So, who would like to open up the floor with the first question of the evening?
Okay, I got a question.
Okay, Tim.
Has anybody besides me tried using the PowerToys?
No.
I've used it a tiny bit. I had a nightmare of a time getting it installed, but I know part of the reason for that. On this one machine, which has got the unsupported 11, I'm doing an experiment with the firewall. And a lot of times I forget, hey, the firewall might be the cause of something not working. So once I got past that and I got it installed, I got so tied up I couldn't touch it. So while I was trying to get the machine ready for tonight's meeting, I checked it out, and I always run in standard mode, not administrator mode. Well, PowerToys has to be run as an administrator. So on the standard screen, it kept popping up a screen with settings requiring you to restart and go into administrator's mode, but you don't get the UAC to log in as an administrator and be able to run it. So what I ended up doing was opening it up to find the shortcut location. And you take right click the shortcut, go down to properties, and on the properties go to the advanced button and put a check mark in run as administrator, and it'll work. You every time you want to run it from standard mode, you got to type in your administrator password, and it runs just fine. But that's one of the quirks.
Is it PowerToys will only run when you're in administrator mode?
Yes, and the reason I had checked out, I guess you would call it a help session type thing from the PowerToys, because some of the things that are being used on your system may be running in administrator mode also. It requires PowerToys, to, especially like fences, to be run from administrator mode itself. Otherwise, things don't work right or at all.
And
under the hood, that's called permissions.
Yeah.
Now this is in Windows 10 or 11?
No, 11.
Any operating system, if you're going to do low-level stuff like that,
yeah,
you'll run into permissions issues.
Yeah, if you take a lot of the utilities that I run on my system and that I have accessible in standard mode, even though the majority of the time I run them in administrator's account for maintenance, I can also run them from the standard account by putting in the administrator's password. And some of those I do have to set up with that permissions in the properties of the shortcut. I create two shortcuts on my standard account, one for disk management and one for device management. And one of the things you have to do besides set up the shortcut is you got to change it, its property also, so that it runs in administrator's mode. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah, for most of us, most of the time, these are good protections.
Yes.
But if I want to do any maintenance on my Windows 10 system or systems, I would just simply open a session as administrator.
Well, I don't like switching through the normal Windows mode of user. And the reason I don't like that is it shuts down the standard user temporarily, brings
Yeah.
up the administrator for you to do usually quite a bit of stuff. Then you log out of it and bring back up and log back into the standard account where you left off.
Yeah.
I find that to be an irritating pain. I'd rather shut down properly the standard account, go log into the administrator's account, do all my garbage, then log out of it and go back into the standard account and continue on from there.
Yeah. It's too bad that even with modern virtualization, you can't be in a standard user account and then open up a window as administrator with full privileges.
Right.
If you were in Linux, you could do that.
But I mean, we're going to live with what we got,
Right.
obviously. There's
Yeah.
a lot of similar restrictions in Mac too.
Yeah, it's Microsoft and Apple saving users from themselves.
In large part.
And most users, it's a good thing.
But there's some nice features in the PowerToys. The one thing I did learn, though, at the moment, I believe it's the last I remember, it's supposed to be up to 0.61. The version I have installed is 0.58. And there's a check for updates. Well, it doesn't seem to work. I'll have to look into that. It could be my firewall settings again. I'm constantly, from time to time, having to go into that, see that there's a problem, give it permissions for that particular problem, and the problem goes away.
Yeah, when you start messing with the firewall, all bets are off.
Well, yeah, but I mean, for all the problems that occur, your firewall is one of your first defenses.
Yes, if you're tweaking it for the purpose of making your system safer, fine. But you do, as you say, you have to remember what you did and what effect, and you have to think forward, what effect is this possibly going to have on what a program is able to do?
Well, under Malwarebytes, they have a firewall control for Windows.
Yeah.
And I use it. It gives you a graphical interface. So you can see what not only the rules you've got now, you can change the profile level settings from no firewall running to a low level to the medium level recommended. High level cuts off all communications in or out.
Right.
So with the regular medium, that's where I try and run most of the time. And even today, I had several permissions I had to add to the rules to make some things work that weren't working quite right.
Okay, so did you get PowerToys to run?
Yeah, I got it run.
Right, and then what of PowerToys is it that you wanted to use?
I was looking at Fences for Starters. It's a case where the PowerToys. Let me bring up something here. Can I get in as a share?
You should be able to.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me bring this PowerToys up first. It's a little bit of a strange beast. So hang loose for a minute. I gotta see if it'll pop up here. It was working earlier. No, you're not. Unless I put in a bad password.
This is a message from Synchrony Bank. Please return our call to 855-844-0114. Our office hours are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time and Saturday from 8 a.m.
Go
Our
to
mailing
death and
address
hell.
is P.O. Box 965064.
All right, are you able to share?
Hang on a
Tim,
minute.
shake your head. You're
Hey.
muted.
You know,
Again, please call 855.
Oh, he's waiting for his answering machine.
0114. This is a recording. Thank you.
interrupted. Anyway,
Ah, okay.
all right. I gotta find it first. Here we go.
Say, Tim, are the firewall controls only in the pro version of Malwarebytes?
Well, I use a separate entity. It's a separate install. It's not. I don't have the pro. I use the free version.
Okay, so it's a separate install, but you didn't have to pay anything for it.
Right.
Okay.
It's a pain in the butt. But what I'm getting at here, when I do the check for updates, I get nothing. Why, I don't know. And I think I should be up to 0.61 or higher. If I turn these two things on
Yeah.
and exit out, come back in, they're off again. So I don't know what this would, why this is occurring yet. And it could be a bug in the software. But you have the image resizer, File Explorer add-ons. They have quite a few that some people may like to have, like this enable PDF preview without having to open it up from within File Explorer. And there's other settings here. You got fancy zones, which is the fences. And this is where you can arrange your icons on your desktop the way you want to have them grouped. Color picker. Awake is an on-demand type thing. I haven't dug into it yet, but basically it allows you to wake up the computer on a schedule, as far as I'm able to tell. You got a keyboard manager, mouse utilities, power rename, which is to be able to rename groups of files to a kind of a common name, especially like photographs from, say, an event that you take a lot of pictures at. PowerToys runs. This is where I went in and let's see here, trying to figure out where I looked at it. There's lots of different settings in here, but there was, I think it was from here that I found how to get to the shortcut. And then there's lots of other little features that give you some various modifications, tuning, tweaking, if you want to call it that, as to what it looks like and options you have available. Shortcut guide that just lets you know keyboard shortcuts that are available. I don't use a heavy amount of shortcuts for anything, mostly because I don't want to have to try and remember them. I have to remember too much now as is, so why bother? This video conference mute, I don't remember that being in there in an earlier version, and I just didn't notice it when I installed this 0.58. I don't know exactly what that's supposed to be about, but I'm assuming there may be some video conferencing programs that don't give you microphone control, and this might be a way of overcoming that. I don't know.
I can tell you what the problem is, although this probably predates the public announcement of the problem. There are video conferencing applications, and Zoom may be one of them, where even if you mute your microphone, it is still, the program is still listening.
Yeah, well, that could be, and that's a real possibility as to what the purpose of this is. So you can, and it even has one here that says mute the camera, which I didn't know you could mute a camera, but whatever.
Once again, there's the problem that even when you have your camera turned off in some of these conferencing apps, the camera can still be accessed by the app, and the light doesn't go on.
Ah, well,
I don't know if you've supplied the articles, but I've looked into a few articles about these
I
things.
remember some of the articles about that. There is a hack where they can hackers can see what's going on any camera with and having the light that normally is lit up turned off. That's
Yeah,
been
this
around for
isn't
long.
a hack.
I
This is
understand.
something some of these apps actually do automatically,
Right.
and the companies are very mum about exactly what they do with these capabilities.
Well, think of this as somebody who is or has worked from home on their computer system, and they've got spyware from a lot of these companies monitoring everything you do. And those people who cannot separate work and their own personal stuff on the computers working from home, they end up unemployed. And a lot of them will never figure out why.
All right, we need to
Yeah,
stay
that's
on
different.
topic
That's
here.
different.
I got a
We're on
question.
PowerToys.
All right, yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to show us on PowerToys?
Not
Tim,
offhand.
Tim,
Yeah.
I want to look at bring back up PowerPoint so I can.
All right. Hang on.
PowerToys.
And nuts.
Oh, that's cool. Look at all that good stuff.
All
No,
right.
not that app. That's your
That isn't
recording.
what we're looking for.
What are you looking for?
PowerToys.
PowerToys.
It's sitting there.
No, that's your video
That's-
recording
That's the
thing.
video recording software.
Oh, it's.
Or something.
It's
Oh,
spyware.
it moved on me. Here we go. No, when I went to select it, it moved.
There you go.
There we are.
Okay, so File Explorer add-ons. I want to look at the drop down on that one.
File Explorer add-ons. Okay.
So enable SVG preview. Does that mean that if you have a vector file and it opens it up and it lets you look at it?
It doesn't. A preview is not theoretically opening the file up. It's giving you a peek into a file in File Explorer, so you can judge: is this the one I want? If so, then I will open it up in either a viewer or an editor for PDF files.
So SVG
SVG.
is vector files, Pete?
Yes, vector files.
I think you need to load this app on and this tool on and try it.
Yeah, I think the story is that Windows Explorer normally cannot do thumbnails with SVG.
It cannot. Natively, it cannot.
But this
Right.
seems to let
This-
you do that.
This adds the ability to do that.
So I guess if you configure File Explorer so that it displays thumbnails, which it does not do by default, you have to configure it to do that.
Right.
Then it will show you those vector files when you highlight it.
It also does. Okay, there's also STL, and that's worth it for me to install PowerToys.
Well, you should do, okay, Pete, while we're having this meeting, I want you to load this on and let's see how this goes, all right?
Well, Pete,
Yeah.
look at the bottom here. There's other files.
Yeah, right.
attached to the-
I'm reading the entire thing down.
Yeah, the bottom line there is they're working on G code, whatever that is, and STLs also.
G code is the machine code for 3D printers and other robotic machines, and STL is the basic format of the file that you move your designs for to use on 3D printers and other type machines.
So those two people that are listed at the bottom are giving credit for the work that they did.
Right.
Yeah, and they have ongoing work.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
that's-
an ongoing project because this is all preview. We haven't gotten to the first full level release of the product. This has been, I can remember going back as far as 0.12 version, and didn't think about it for a long time. Then I got this 0.58, and I had a nightmare trying to get it on. Finally got that, and I know it's at least 0.61 or higher right now, without looking it up.
Mhm.
Oh,
All right. Okay, so Pete's
Okay,
going to load
this is
this on, and
I'm
we'll
going
see
to
how
load
this
it on.
All right.
Okay, so when you do the downloads, that's downloads from somebody else's site. You get the file in on an email.
Well, it comes
So
out
you
of
download, let me finish, please. So you download the file, it goes into the downloads folder. Now that's an Explorer, right?
right,
Okay,
and it's GitHub where that comes from.
not necessarily.
Well, that's the primary. That's where the developers are at.
For
Others,
Windows
others,
apps, but not necessarily for drawings.
Right, right. No, he's just saying where you get PowerToys from, not where you get your
Yeah,
not where you get your SVG files.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you can't find where the download went, it'll be up in your browser, the upper right-hand corner. There should be something that says downloads,
Yeah.
and you click on it and open the folder, and there you have it. Okay, we need to move on to the next question. Anyone have another question?
is it as hot there as it is here?
Actually, it finally got cooler. It broke today or
You
overnight.
said the weather to us.
So now we're in the
It's
70s.
95 at the shore.
That's nothing. That was pretty much our lowest high temperature.
I understand that on the mainland, but we're supposed to be moderated by 1,000 miles of ocean at 70 degrees.
And
Yeah,
you guys
I'm
got
in Boston. We're supposed to be moderated too.
well, we
Yeah, but
got
he's more
moderated
moderate.
today by the lake.
What?
We
Yeah.
were moderated today by the lake.
Okay,
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
My Macrium Reflect has lost its backup configuration, at least that I could determine, because I just went to run it and it doesn't remember where I put the files, where they go. And when I tell it where the files had been, it can't seem to open up the backups that were on there. So I'm going to I'm going to turn on Macrium Reflect and ask the group to help me through this because I know we got some professionals here that work with this. So let's go here. Macrium Reflect is up on here. And if I go to create an image, and this little dialog box comes up, it no longer directs it to, if you look at the bottom, it says backup file name folder. It's giving the destination folder, it's giving a local folder versus I always had this being done on my server. So if I pull up my server, wait, I should have a down arrow here. Cancel, sorry. There it goes. And if you could see where it says folder, it says SK server, books, backup, Lenovo laptop. And file name, I'll just give it today's date, which would be 2022-0809, and I gotta let somebody in. Terry's coming in. All right, and I choose next.
If you're doing a backup, I always go to advanced options and do an auto verify.
Okay, but that's besides the point. Yeah, and I get that.
Okay.
All right, so now it's telling me your selection includes unlocked BitLocker partitions, blah, blah, blah. So I don't care about that. Oh, so now this time it worked. All right, so now it's going to let me get in there. So I don't know what the hell happened. Last time I tried it, it didn't want to work. So never mind.
Well, it was interesting.
Because then it went to here. If I go to, what do I want to go to? Existing backups, and I want to browse, and I click on my server. It doesn't find any.
I'm wondering if that security password is blocking you and it's not giving you the request for password.
Okay.
I've never done it this the way that you're doing it. I understand the principles, but I haven't done it that way. And occasionally I try to do some things that I know require a administrator's password just for running local stuff, and I don't get the UAC all the time.
All right, the password dialog box that you saw pop up was actually the dialog box for my server.
Okay,
not for my local machine. It's to access the server because that requires a password. And I didn't want to go through and do that here in the video because no one needs to see what's going on that.
Understood.
So for whatever reason, was not totally letting me in. I don't know why. So
normally I would.
You have a little red X on that, which means it's not connecting to it.
Right.
You got this selected down here for the server. Wait a minute. Go back to that.
Oh, sorry. I'll go back. Hold on. Share. I think that's this. Yes.
Because I know one thing that might work. You got this selected down here for the server.
Yes.
Go up to the near the top here where it says browse for an image file.
Yes.
And point to the server or whatever.
Okay. So now I have to go through and find, which I have. And that should be it. Now, so I told it to open. Now what's it looking for?
It's looking for an image file, .img file.
But it's looking at, am I supposed to go in?
Yeah, it's probably in one of those folders. I'm guessing.
There.
No, it ain't in that one. Try the data. You got OF and C. I'd try the C. Yeah, user Sanford. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, look at, now this is actually what my system kind of looks like, I think. It's not finding it the way it used to.
So I always use an external drive on a USB, and I've never had a problem with that.
Well, it's just where the server is just where the location is.
That's right.
But for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to find what it's looking for these backups. So maybe when I get, go ahead.
Sanford, what you have in your setup is technically a network environment. It's a network drive.
Right.
Right.
And those operate differently from your local drives. And that's as far as my knowledge goes on these things. I don't do network backups.
Okay.
But backing up to a network location.
When I go and do a backup, process, it may reset itself on knowing where the backups are.
Another thing you might try, do you save backup definitions?
I have.
Yeah, they're in your docs folder under Macrium Reflect folder.
So
Well, in the Macrium Reflect program, you'll have definitions that will show up if you just simply look into the main task of backup, existing backups. And
Okay.
your existing backups will include some definitions, which I think I see a few of them.
you see,
I see 2 items.
Well, yeah, it says Lenovo.
No, up in the left column.
Left column.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh, that one, this dialog box,
That's one of them.
No.
but it doesn't show any of the definitions.
I think it's under create backups. You'll find your definitions. If there's a general definition, it'll be under the create backup tab. Definition files, second tab, not local disks, but definition files. It's either there or under scripts.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
There's one of your definition.
documents reflect folders.
And you might have one that points toward where you want it to go.
Okay, so now this is working. Got it.
That might be a solution.
All right.
And you can always edit those and change the location as needed.
Yep.
And
Got it.
And the date for the backup name.
Yeah, there's also in Macrium Reflect a whole system of codes you can use to automatically stamp the date, to automatically stamp the image ID, to automatically stamp some other things as part of the name of the backup.
Okay.
And Macrium Reflect likes it when you use those because it makes it easier for it to run the script and to find things and to ID the backup.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
It can all be very automatic, but if it's too automatic, you might want to do it differently sometimes.
All right. Got that. Good. We covered that one. I want to move
Okay.
on to the next thing.
Yeah.
A slight update, or actually an update on my external hard drive that I wanted to encrypt with BitLocker. And the last thing I reported last Thursday is I tried to do it. It failed on a new drive on the server, and I could not get it to go. So I just threw up my hands and said, forget it. I'll go back to my original task, which was to, copy all my files over for archiving, and I won't bother with the encryption on there. So I went ahead and did that. That's like a 2-day process because I got a lot of data. Well, it's an 8 terabyte drive, and I fill it up almost completely. And I'm excluding stuff too that is not as important. So, anyways, I did that, and then for the heck of it, I thought, you know what? I'll call up BitLocker again and see if it'll work this time. And damn it, it worked. And now it's encrypting the drive. Of course, I started this Sunday morning. I started it, and I'm about 50% done now.
It's got to be that BitLocker expects to find data file out there, or it's not going to encrypt.
I guess so. So I'm letting it run. I'm not stopping it. I'm letting it do its thing, and then I'll put it through its paces once it's done. But I suspect this is going to be a 4-day process to encrypt this 8 terabyte drive. That's what I anticipate. But I'm just letting it whirl, letting it go.
Hopefully you don't get a power outage.
I do have, yes. And hopefully the system won't go through a reboot too with, Patch Tuesday.
Yeah.
Which it may do sometime tonight. It could do that. And
it actually starts up around noon on Chicago time when they start sending out the update.
Right.
You just don't know when you're going to get hit with it.
Yeah, and it
So-
happens. I'll just come back down and the server would reboot, and I didn't know it. So hopefully that won't happen. Power outage, I do have it on a UPS. So hopefully that's not a problem.
Sanford, on this machine, do you have group policies available?
I don't know.
If you
I've
have-
never established. I'm sure they're there. It's a server.
If you have group policies available, you can prevent the updates from automatically applying in any version of Windows, at least up through 11. You can set a
technically
group
not home.
policy.
Not home. The home.
Yeah,
version
not
of-
home, but pro upward.
Yeah.
Server, I believe, is pro upward.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Well,
if you have the group policies, you can do that. Otherwise, it's a registry setting.
GEdit .msc, I think it is, from a run command.
and what will that do?
Brings up the group policy editor
Yeah.
Okay.
that he's talking about. And then you go make your modifications, save it, and they'll be enforced.
Okay. What was that I got to type?
G.
I don't know if you want to do that with it and don't you have to restart after you make a change like that?
Yeah, you don't want to do that now. You just
Okay.
want to do that for next time.
All right. Well,
It's gedit .msc on a run command.
GEdit.
Is it gedit or GPedit?
Probably
I think
GP.
it's GPedit. Excuse me.
Oh.
GPedit .msc.
GPedit.
.msg.
MSC.
C.
N. Nancy. Sam.
And no, Mary, Sam, Charlie.
Okay. That's why I did it phonically.
MSC.
All right. All right. Thank you for that one.
Not MSG. We don't need the MSG.
Installed.
No.
All right. So now that we covered that one.
Yeah.
The next thing
That's just so that you don't get interrupted when you're doing something like this.
Right. I got my fingers crossed that this is going to work. That's all I could say. I got my fingers crossed.
Or if it's safe to do so, just disconnect your internet.
Oh, hey, go into, I don't know if on a server, because it's been so damn long since I even looked at one. Normally under the Windows Update, at least in 10, you have the ability to pause the update process 7 days. Check
Okay.
it and see if it's got that capability. I just thought of that just now.
Yeah, but again, that may be something where it's going to want to restart to make it take effect.
When I wanted to delay it one time recently, no restart was required.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right. So I'll give that a whirl after our meeting tonight. I'll run downstairs to try that.
Pause for 7 days. Pause for 7 days. Yeah.
Now the next thing I've got, totally different direction. All right. I installed Rekuva. Have not used that in a long time, but I installed Rekuva to try to recover a lost file that was on a USB stick. I've used it before. And this computer never had it on there that I loaded it on. Now that computer is getting pop-up ads in the lower right-hand corner that I don't want.
Well, I have lots of freeware that I run on my systems, and they got pop-up ads galore, just like you're describing, and I have not found a way of getting rid of the suckers. Now, supposedly, if it was in a browser like Chrome, there is a way of turning off ads. But these are popped up outside of the browser. The only thing I can think of would be to check out AutoRun's it used to be by Sys Internals that was bought out by Microsoft. It gives you access to anything that will automatically run, and odds are you have scheduled items that are launching that pop-up ad. But I've never found out what they were yet. It's not a high priority on mine. I'm very good at ignoring those pop-up ads, and almost all of them just disappear by themselves. They're up there for like 20, 30 seconds, and then they're gone. So I just learned to ignore them.
Yeah. It's part of like this whole Microsoft advertising thing that they have in the lower right-hand side. You know, they'll give you news and other crap that we
Yes.
just don't need on our desktop, but they feel we want it.
Well, that little feature, I've posted 10 forum articles how to take that thing out if you want to do it.
Okay.
So there are past articles from that forum that will take and remove that for you.
I'll have to look for those articles.
Yeah, the trouble is everything that comes from the company that used to be CCleaner now will have all this kind of pop-up adware in it.
Yeah, right. You're
You
right.
cannot remove it. You cannot remove it without disabling the program.
Well,
Okay.
there are some ways that may be doable through the AutoRuns, but I'm not guaranteeing anybody on that. Good luck.
Yeah, it might work, but I am very doubtful. With my CCleaner, I just keep the program closed most of the time.
Yeah, same for me, Nat. But still, you get the pop-up ads, especially for updating. But that's where I ignore all those, and I use my PC, patch my PC.
You might try in the firewall to actually block the program itself.
Yeah, but if you do that, then there's no sense in having the program on the computer in the first place.
Well,
Technically, you're correct, Peter. I can block it, but all you're wanting to do is block one feature capable of that product.
So Margaret's PC had one of the antiviruses put on by the factory.
Okay.
That we went through the entire, the free subscription. That's okay. We can go through the. I just didn't want to renew it because I use Windows.
Like McAfee.
Yes, and it kept coming up.
Right.
You want it every couple of days. It would do a renewal, and I finally went into the. After I uninstalled it, it still popped up because it was in a recurring message.
That's because with AVG, Avast, Norton, and McAfee, you have to have a cleanup program that gets rid of what it leaves behind that's causing those pop-ups in the first place.
I did that. It still had a tag in there. So I finally went back and found the tag, and I literally blocked it in firewall. And that got it gone. That's why I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Better to find the item in the registry and get rid of it.
Absolutely, but that's
I
touchier sometimes.
sometimes programs
You're not
like
used to going into the registry.
you might not have to do it yourself. Sometimes programs like Revo Uninstaller or Geek Uninstaller can monitor the uninstall and then pick out everything else in the registry.
Well, not only that, but when you run those two programs, either one of them, first it'll try and use the uninstaller of that application. However, I'm lucky if I see 1% of such programs I'm uninstalling that clean everything they put in back out. So they have a scan button at the bottom. You run the scan button after the uninstall, and it'll tell you everything it found in the registry, give you a select button, a delete button, confirm the delete, and it removes it all from the registry. Then it'll say, hey, by the way, it left all these files behind. You do the same basic thing. Select, delete, confirm, and they're most of them will be gone unless they're open. And it'll give you a message saying the next time you restart your computer, it will remove those remaining files.
Yeah, the other thing that Geek Uninstaller has, and I would recommend this for an antivirus program, it has something called Force Uninstall. And Force Uninstall is more powerful, and it will remove some things that otherwise don't want to be removed. If that doesn't work, then you have to use the removal tool, because you'll have to go into Windows Safe mode where you don't have all these services running. Because the services will keep part of the program from being uninstalled.
Yeah, and part of what you're trying to get rid of or shut down are services that you no longer want or need.
Right.
Yeah.
So safe mode is your friend.
Well, that's the funny thing. As far as I'm concerned, it wasn't too bad getting into 10 into safe mode before, but the last couple of years they made it a draconian nightmare, and 11's just as bad or worse. And trying to get yourself into safe mode right now becomes a real trick.
Yeah, it's just two restarts.
Yeah. I've had, I know what you're talking about explicitly. What he's talking about is you restart the computer, and before it gets up, you reboot the system at least 2 times. On the third time, it'll give you the option to bring up safe mode.
Yeah.
Pain in the butt.
Pain in the butt is right. Same thing as trying to get into the BIOS or UEIF or UEFI or whatever.
UEFI.
They make it very difficult to do now.
Right.
On my computer, it's different. At least I could set it up in my BIOS so that it pauses at a certain point, and you either hit the escape to boot normally or F2 to get into BIOS, and it just sits there and lets you do that for a few seconds.
Yeah, that's nice, because they've removed that out of a lot of machines these days, the ability to go directly into your BIOS by hitting the delete or F1 or whatever key it's going to be, F12 it could be, escape key, F2.
Yeah, my escape key puts me into the various boot options that are in the UEFI.
Well, the
Right.
other,
And then I can scroll down and tap.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
Well, wait a minute, 1 second.
Yes.
The other thing you can do if you need to get into safe mode, any of the versions, go to MS config in a run line, and that gives you the option in there to do a selective boot. You can go into safe mode, and the only thing is the last thing when you're in the safe mode, before you reboot, go back into MS config, deselect it to go into normal boot mode, then hit your restart, and you're back in normal business.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Okay. All right. So my next question is there any way to download Windows 7 updates from Microsoft without being a member of ESU?
No.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Windows 7 updates, what was the abbreviation acronym?
I don't know what it is. The ESU is the Enterprise probably Service. I don't know what it is.
Extended service for updates.
There you see.
Well,
and you have to buy that.
Stuff.
No,
you have to buy that. It's in
I'll-
Windows Secrets newsletter.
I'll be honest. I have a 7 as a tech in case I need to support somebody, and I've been getting updates. But if you didn't get certain updates put in, you seem to get nothing ever. Once you get past a certain point of updates, then it becomes automatic. And I've gotten through 2020 January.
Well, there still is some updates that are trickling through every once in a while on
Yeah,
7,
that's
but
all you're
not
going to
many.
get.
I just wanted to know if there was any way to, like you could download KBs files from Microsoft and install those. I just didn't know if there was a way to hunt those down, but I believe they're tailored individually
That
by
could
the
Yeah.
be.
program.
All I know is it's a pistol getting a very old copy, and that's what mine was. It got no updates from the image that was there until I found a few other things, added them in, and all of a sudden now I once in a great while will get some updates. Like I say, January 2020 was the last one. It's an accumulative update.
Okay. All right. Well, it was just a shot in the dark. And that's it for my immediate questions that I had. Anyone else got questions? No. All right, then we can then go into our subjects that I posted tonight. But before we do that, Bob is going to show us what is that program called, Bob? I'm sorry. You're going to show us.
I'm going to answer a question that Pete asked, I think it was a
Right.
month ago. How can you tell how many cores or hyperthreads programs are using in your computer? In other words, what is the real-time CPU load on each of the cores and each of the hyperthreads they contain? And that led to an interesting little investigation. I think I can share.
Yes.
And I will try sharing my screen and moving you guys and seeing whether or not, yes, I can do that. Okay, so I had this minimized for a reason. What I was wondering was there still in Windows a system monitor that would show various CPU cores? There is. You go into the task manager and you open it. And you get all these processes. Go into performance and you get the overall CPU, which right now is running like 25%. There's also something called resource monitor. And when you go in there, you get a UAC. Let's try that again. All right. And I'm going to minimize this guy. This is a nice little graph you can see of the activity, and it says everything, and all the numbers make sense, and it's great. Now, here's what happens when you go into Resource Monitor. All the numbers are 100%, and it happens on many modern CPUs. Anything that has turbo mode, anything that has any kind of acceleration, and various other conditions. Microsoft is well aware of this problem, that these numbers don't mean anything. And the graphs are perfectly fine, but the numbers that are reported do not correspond with the graphs. And Microsoft is well aware of it, and they have no intention of fixing it. They're saying that everybody else is wrong and they're right. So I can still use the resource monitor to monitor things like disk. But let's take this guy down for a while. What they used to have in Windows 7 were gadgets, which sat on a sidebar. Microsoft decided at some point, well, these are insecure, But I think what Microsoft really wanted to do in the original Windows 8, they had hot corners all over the place. They had flyouts all over the place, switching between this desktop and that desktop and all kinds of other stuff. And they were always covering over these gadgets with other stuff. Now I think they have something like widgets that they have that do something else and they pop up from your taskbar, and that's just an annoyance. But they don't have anything like this anymore. But this is called System Monitor 2. It's a gadget. It's a classic gadget. In order to fully use it, you need Core Temp, and Core Temp needs .NET Framework 3.5, which is still supported, and it will be through 2029, so it's okay. You can download it. You can install .NET and Core Temp so that you can get full utilization of this. And I have a document that shows a lot of detail about where you get these things and how you get them. Scrolling all the way down to the bottom of my document, which I will post into chat, I have all the references you need in order to make all this work. You'd go to a place called WinArrow, and I am just going to simply open that hyperlink in my browser, and we have Desktop Gadgets and Sidebar for Windows 10. WinArrow is the same place you get the WinArrow tweaks, so that's perfectly easy to do. These are some of the gadgets that people use. And first you download the sidebar. Then you can download gadgets from the gadget gallery. Be careful where you get these gadgets because it is possible to inject malware into gadgets. Then they can reach out into the internet, out to the internet in ways that are not documented very well any longer. In other words, Windows and Windows Defender may not know that the gadget has reached out to the internet in the way that it did. And that's the security risk. It might bypass the firewall and other things. But if you're careful about where you get your gadgets, I'm going to just open the link for the gadget gallery. And here are some of the gadgets that they've got, all kinds of different gadgets. But System Monitor, oh, here's one that's a System Information gadget. I think that's one of the ones. This is one thing that this is one of the gadgets that would show system information, but it's not really a very useful gadget from the point of view of seeing all your cores all at once and all of that. So what you do is the System Monitor, I'm going to minimize my browser. The System Monitor gadget, let me see if I got this right. Here, it comes from a different place. This is the place where you go, windows10gadgets.pro, which is also a safe site. And this is the thing that I downloaded, System Monitor 2 gadget, and it's got all its features, and it tells you need to install Core Temp, and Core Temp will tell you to install .NET 3.5. And this is the explanation on their page of everything that it does. It shows when a core is parked, and through this gadget you can enable parking if it isn't already enabled. I did that. And that will mean that if your first physical core is not completely used up or not beyond a threshold, the remaining cores will remain parked and idle. And this has an advantage for performance. But in any event, what I am able to do, if we look here at my gadget as fully configured and fully up and running with Core Temp. Core Temp requires an administrator prompt, a password in order to fire up. You can ignore this. This is just another gadget that tells me the uptime. So let me use the magnifier so you can actually see what these numbers are actually doing, what the bars are doing. And then that's almost all I need to want. That's almost all I want to show you guys. This is just the Windows magnifier as it exists in Windows 10. I think 11 is similar. and we can magnify this area of the screen. And we have all kinds of things. Let's ignore the memory section. It identifies my CPU and all the things like that, and the maximum temperature that is recommended. And this is a graph that shows what kind of temperature I have. I can set warnings, and these percentages, the overall percentage of 13%, the 25% on one of my hyperthreads on upward, these are reasonable and meaningful numbers. And those are the figures you can see. And you can monitor from the time you get into your session and the gadget comes up. It starts with Windows, so it'll come up shortly after you enter your account. And you can see from that point onward, as you fire up different programs, how it adds up and adds up. And before I fire up Zoom, I usually have these 4 hyperthreads at most, just 2 cores that are active and the rest are parked. But with Zoom running, I am now using more cores and I'm using more hyperthreads, and all but 2 of my hyperthreads, all but 1 of my cores could be active at any given time, depending on what I'm sharing and how much of a demand it's making. Okay, Sanford, you have a question?
Yes, don't scroll away from there. Roll
Okay,
back
here we
over.
go.
All right. So for one thing, you have a Core i5, which if I recall correctly, it is a 4-core unit with
Yes.
2 hyperthreads per core.
Exactly.
So what we're illustrating here, if I got this right, is you're illustrating all 4 cores followed by each core's thread. So you should have 8 indicators there. Am I reading that correctly?
There are 8 indicators, and they are paired because it goes 0 and 1 are core 1. 2 and 3 are core 2, and so forth. Up to 7, up to 6 and 7. Yeah, up to 6 and 7, which are core 4.
Okay. All right.
0
And
through 7.
explain park.
Park means, as far as I understand it, you're forcing a core to become idle and not to accept a load until other cores are loaded up. In other words, what you're doing is you're balancing the load in that way. You could also balance the load so as to have all the cores active and just use as little of each one as possible. You would not be using park in that case.
Okay, and what is the graph that we're seeing just below those temperatures?
That should be the total load, and if you could see each of these lines separately, it would be showing every one of these hyperthreads, every one of the cores. Maybe just every one of the cores. There should be only 4 lines.
Okay.
But you won't see them separately unless they begin to really diverge.
So the CPU usage where you got 13%, that's total overall.
The overall CPU usage is now 15%.
Right, but even though the first core might be at 25%, that as we see right there, that doesn't matter. It's averaging across the rest of them.
What it's doing is telling the total load on the entire CPU.
Okay.
All cores considered. All cores considered as a unit. And that's exactly what Microsoft is showing you in the performance meter. If you not the performance, but the one I showed you before performance. Yeah, performance, not resource, but performance.
Right. And so this is not showing us the clock speed of those cores.
Just a minute here.
Or is it?
Clock.
There is something in here that says clock.
Okay, go down. Move up a little, right there.
Yeah, in here. Clock.
There.
It says what the clock speed is at any given moment. That's about every 5 to 15 seconds it'll change, and it'll tell you the clock speed. In this case, it's 4.2 gigahertz.
Okay, I got it.
And 100.5 by 38.2 or whatever is more detail about the clock speed. So yes, clock. I don't know what the VID is. I do know what TJ max is. That's the maximum safe temperature.
Right.
And there could be, you can set it so there will be a warning if it exceeds that, which right now it is doing.
Would VID be voltage?
Yeah,
Like
it's in
the
volts.
video processor.
Video
What was that?
processing?
Yeah,
Why would it be expressed in V, which is volts?
Yeah. yeah.
So that is a correct unit for video?
No. I think
No,
Stanford was right.
It's voltage.
it's voltage. It's the voltage of the CPU. I do not have a graphics processor. I don't have a separate GPU. Mine are onboard graphics.
But you do have 18 gigs of RAM.
I
Or is that
have 16 gigs of RAM. What does it say about the, oh, here's where it comes from. 15.62 is physical RAM. Then you have paging, which adds to it a couple of gig. And that's where you get 18 gig. That includes paging. So the RAM reporting is RAM, page, and all. All is the blue. Page file is the orange. And I don't know what that line is, but the red is the RAM, the physical RAM. So it's reporting, other than what Windows uses in order to run itself, I have 15.62 gig. And the 502, I suspect the 400 to 500 megabytes is some kind of a caching RAM.
It might be your virtual RAM.
Could be. Whatever it is. There's also paging, which of course is the 2.4 gig.
That's your virtual RAM.
Okay, well then the 500 is something additional.
that could be reserved RAM?
I could look it up, but
Yeah, Microsoft keeps RAM aside for whatever reason. You got RAM that's committed, not committed, held in limbo.
if we go back to the website, we can see what it is, but I'll have to get out of Magnify. Going back to the website, I'll show you what they say it is. They have three. Okay. They don't have 4 rows. They only have 3. And it's used free total RAM. It's used free page file and used free total of all memory. So that 500 must be something additional. Not sure what it is. And the VID, they don't have anything about it. It means something.
It means something, otherwise they wouldn't have wrote it in there.
Yeah. But, that's what we've got. I think the core graph, you can actually limit the lower range so it isn't 0, so that it'll show more distinctly each of the separate cores and what their temperatures are. So you can do that with it too.
All right, so should we load this on my machine or load this on Pete's and share this process?
Pete was asking, do his programs use all the cores?
Pete, do you want to load it on your
Actually,
machine to watch?
I was actually looking to see if a program uses a core by itself. So if it was isolated.
Now in Windows, I'm not sure you can isolate a program that way unless you go into the task manager, into performance. Let me show you something.
Okay.
What you can see is processes, and you can see what the processes are using of your CPU, your memory, your disk, etc. Now that you can't see how many cores they're using in this, and you can't see it in performance either. That just shows the entire CPU
Right.
overall. So I don't think this particular system monitor is going to show you each individual program or process and which cores it's using. But you will be able to see when a program adds to the number of cores being used and when it needs additional cores. So
Yeah.
that may be part of the answer.
Because back when I was at Sears and I was using LabVIEW,
Yeah,
when you started to get into high-speed data acquisition,
yeah,
using accelerometers and that sort of stuff, where you'd have tens to hundreds of channels all running at megahertz application data coming
Okay.
in.
yeah.
They had a process in the program to lock a core to the program.
I see. So the program would be running, there'd be a core dedicated to the program.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm not even sure you can do that in Windows, although maybe you can.
That was on a Windows machine,
Okay.
but
That's
that was
usually
Windows
handled by
7.
the operating system.
What?
The OS handles the load and distribution of it.
They found a way of, there was a method in 7 that they could dedicate a processor to a process.
And I think that's also still true in 10 and 11. If you know what you're doing and you really go into whatever it is you need to tweak, you can do it. You can put code into the program that will say to Windows, dedicate this core to this process.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as telling Windows, I want you to use multi-cores. I want you to use multi-threads. If the program is written efficiently, it should do that kind of steps for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the intent of the question was to find out from the desktop, can I discover that if a program is actually doing that or not?
Yeah,
These
you're down to
tools may
machine
not be
language.
powerful. They may not be deep enough to do that.
No, you're down to machine language stuff.
Yeah, you're down to the machine level.
On server, on a mainframe, you could do that. But on mainframes, you could dedicate a core or a batch of cores to a process and isolate it completely, but that's a mainframe.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this is what I came up with.
Okay, so I like what you
Thank you.
came up with. I want to put this on my machine.
Okay.
So let's do this.
All right, let me put into chat what I have got here.
Just the couple of,
And
right?
just a minute. Let's see. I want to take this. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, so I'm going to open chat and I'm going to upload. And this is going to be this PC. Here, 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 and here. Do you want just the references or do you want the whole document with the references? Everybody else might.
You should probably give us all of it.
Okay, then we'll do that. Okay.
Because Harry
it had a disk IO error. It's not going to do it. Okay, that's what I thought would happen. So just a moment. I know why it does that. This is on a different disk.
Snoozing.
It has to go to my desktop. And then it'll be able to do that. And desktop. And where is it? Here. There. Now it's in chat.
Okay, we got it in chat. All right, Bob.
And you just scroll to the bottom for the references.
And I'm going to put this, save that. Okay.
Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to find the actual download sites for the things that we need to download. We'll need to do that one.
It's Windows D. No,
Oops.
and Windows Gadgets reference.
Just a moment.
All this stuff. Man,
Okay. You need to go to the WinArrow first reference.
which one is this? You got a lot of pages here. Page number,
The bottom page.
last
Bottom
page.
page. Last
Yep.
page has a complete list of the references, just isolated references.
Okay. Windows 10 gadget references.
Yeah. And you're going to the WinArrow first page.
Desktop sidebar.
Yeah. And you will download the sidebar.
Okay, first I'm going to make a note here.
Yeah, it's winarrow.com, desktop gadgets, and sidebar.
All right.
So that's the first download. Now, the second thing that
Open,
you will need,
open hyperlink. I'm sorry, I'm talking while I'm doing this.
that's okay.
Who's listening?
Uh,
Let me know when you get to the WinArrow download.
Well, I'm there. I got to make sure I got you guys. Share screen.
Okay.
All right.
So WinArrow download. That first link says download the sidebar, so do that.
Okay.
It should just download.
Start download. No, which one is
Not
it?
that one, not the bottom one.
Not the bottom one.
I think you have to scroll a little bit down that page.
I hate these sneaky little things. View.
Yeah, I know. It's being sneaky on us. I think you go a little farther.
It said that was Windows 11.
Yeah. I think maybe at the bottom it'll give you a link. Here it is. Download link for desktop gadgets and sidebar. Let's see if that'll do it. There it is.
Okay. Got
You
it.
got it. You'll have to unzip it.
All right. And then install that.
I think you'll be able to install that, but it may warn you that in order for it to work, you will need to do a further download of two things. First of all, do you have .NET Framework 3.5 on your computer?
I don't. I may not. First, I got to choose a language.
Yeah. So do the install.
Wait, I got to first choose the language.
Use Arabic or Chinese.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, either way. So it's going to tell you to.
Well, now I got the sidebar. I have to come up with my own. I got to pick something, right?
Just a moment. Let me get into.
So, some gadgets have
Wait a minute.
access to the internet, privacy.
Here we go.
Can you see the pop-up bar that came up?
No, I don't see it. You would
No.
have to be sharing your desktop, your entire screen.
Stop share.
And even
Share.
still, we may not see pop-ups.
Oh, here's the gallery just showed up. This one.
Okay.
So it's saying.
Yeah, you're down to the gallery, but you won't want to do that gallery. There's another download site.
Right, so I
Windows.
should just X out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're not going to use. You can use that later if you wish, but that's not where it's going to be.
Okay.
Now, on my references page, the next big heading is Windows 10 11 Gadgets Galleries.
All right, so now I got this loaded.
And it's the first link.
Bear with me, I got to find your. Okay, bear with me. Let me share this desktop here. Sorry if I'm being sluggish.
Yeah,
But
I
want
know.
to
I've got a lot of
see
stuff.
this. I'm going
I got a
back
lot of
to
stuff
the-
in there.
Got back to your desktop. Okay, so the next item here, you have gadgets.
No, down to the next heading.
I know that, but you have
yeah.
gadgets, get, revive, download, or sidebar. Do not use that one.
You don't need that. You don't
Okay.
need that.
Okay.
You need in the next heading the top one. No, down.
Hold on, I'm gonna put a space here between that one.
No, that isn't it.
I know that.
I organized these by headings so that you
I know
could.
that, but you
Oh,
said
I see.
not this one, not this one.
Oh, I see. I know what you're
Okay.
talking about.
All right.
Okay. All right. Now you drop down to the top one in that group. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
This
the one.
Install this
Yeah. That's the one.
second, and it's only that one, not the other three.
No, you won't need the other three.
Not
The-
these.
Those are things that somehow got in other way, in some
All
other
right, so
ways.
you take extensive notes here, so
Yeah, I know
going
it's
to
confusing.
open hyperlink.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this changed.
I haven't seen a change.
No, the screen. Okay.
The screen. And
Share.
you seem to be in a wait.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm going there. Share.
you'll probably
Okay.
have to switch it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And you scroll down, you can X out that thing at the bottom.
Get rid of that.
That's just garbage. Yeah, scroll down to first it's got the overview, and don't do that. Download. You have to scroll down to the bottom like with the other one.
Well, you said you needed core temp.
We'll do that last.
Okay.
Actually, second to last, you may need .NET 3.5.
We'll see. I might have that on here already. I don't know.
All right.
If you,
I think it's down below. It may be at the bottom of the page. Just a minute. Download now System Monitor 2. That download.
Okay.
I think that will X out of that. It did it.
All right. So I already did this once.
Oh. Well, see where it is.
All right.
Unzip it.
So I got this. Here's the problem I came up with this one when I tried this.
Mhm.
I double click on it
Yeah.
and Windows comes up and says, hey, this is not supported. And I choose run anyways, correct?
Yeah. That's right.
All right.
That's right. And they do say not supported, and I told you why. They think it's insecure.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Last time it wouldn't let me get this far because I did not have that sidebar thing. It
The
just
sidebar has to be there, and then you just double click on it, and it will install. You click on the install, and it will install itself. And you can keep that little installer on your desktop in case you ever have to reinstall the gadget.
Okay.
Sometimes Windows does things to these gadgets.
Wow. All right. The gadget is now installed and running on my machine. I just
Okay.
need to move it.
We can't see your screen.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'd like to see where you got it, where you got it installed,
Share.
because I think you got it right.
Share.
Yeah.
And do you see
Yeah,
it?
you got it.
I
Yeah,
got
got
it upper right. Of course, I need to
Later on, you'll configure it.
configure. Well,
There's 9 different things to configure. You're going to want to play around a lot. And there's
Okay.
colors to configure, all kinds of stuff.
yeah. For one thing, I want to make it bigger so I can read it.
The fact of the matter is, I don't think you can scale it very much.
I mean, it is teeny. All right.
Yeah.
So I got it.
There may be a way of scaling it. Let me see on mine whether or not there is a way of scaling it. Just a minute. Here we go. Let me move you guys. I can't. Okay. Let me do this. All right. Yeah. Did I scale anything? I think all I did was I got onto the edge of it and I was able to drag it a little ways out. Let me see if that was what I was able to do.
Do you mean enlarge it?
Yeah, to get it to enlarge.
Try the corners. See if that works.
Oh, look, it disappears.
Oh, I don't want you to disappear it.
No, the program
Uh,
disappeared from my desktop. Wonder why.
Huh. I have had that happen too, where I had to reinstall it.
I ran it, and now it's not there. Okay, I will play with that and see what
The
happens.
gadget can be dragged on my computer, but I am not able to resize it.
Okay.
I think there is a setting for the width, and that would allow you to do that. Let me just see. Uh, Okay, well, anyway, the next thing that you will probably want is core temp. And I have a link for core temp, which is
this
all by itself.
individually? Oh, core temp. Okay, I did load that on.
Yeah.
Um,
All that does is allow you to see the temperatures.
yes, but that was also in that system gadget showed you the temperatures too, didn't it? No.
Not until you get core temp in there.
Okay. All right. So now where the hell did that go?
I'm trying to find out if. Now I have auto scale DPI on in the settings, and what else? No, I think it scales itself according to the width of the sidebar. So no, I don't know any direct way of changing that.
Okay.
Can the sidebar itself be modified?
That's what I'm thinking. The sidebar itself would need to be modified, but I don't know how to do that. I didn't run into that problem.
How about a magnifier?
Well,
Using
the magnifier will magnify it, but that doesn't actually solve the problem. Okay. So anyway,
it's back again. It's kind of weird.
the other thing is when I restarted, it may have resized, it may have reconfigured itself in some ways in terms of appearance when I restarted Windows or restarted the user. These gadgets do change when you reboot. They adapt.
So core temp needs to be running.
Yeah, you run core temp.
All right. Run.
You just start it up.
Yes. All right. So I did that.
And then you should be able to see the temperatures will start to show up.
See, the thing is, Sanford, if you needed 3.5 net, it would have already asked you to install
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So apparently you
So-
haven't.
I think you're good on that.
Core temp. How do I share my desktop again? Where
Gee,
is
you
desktop?
forgot already?
No, yeah, I've got core temp on here.
Okay, there is something you'll want to set up with core temp. I think you have some options to start minimized. Options, maybe.
Options.
Yeah, go with options. Settings. And display. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Start core temp with Windows you may or may not want.
Okay, I'll try that first.
Yeah. Just a minute. Display is the next thing you'll need. The display tab. And see which temperatures you want. Start core temp minimized. And I think close core temp to the notification area because it's supposed to ultimately end up there. And let's check the notification area tab. All right. There's a notification area tab. Okay, all cores is correct. That's what you'll want. And don't do extra icons. Okay. I think that should do it.
Okay.
Apply. And I think right now you're just going to hit the minimize button, and it should go down to your notification area. And there'll maybe be an up caret there when you do that.
Look at all this ad junk. Oh, great.
What?
Uh,
You got ads?
I'm not seeing it.
We're not
That's
seeing
right.
it.
all right,
Yeah.
and I know because I'm not doing anything at the second.
Okay.
Stop sharing. Share.
Let's see whether you got it.
How do I tell this to display my desktop?
I think things got too techy for Terry.
What do I got to do?
I said I think things got too techy for Terry.
Oh, yeah, probably.
That or it's past his bedtime.
Yep, could be one of the two. Sorry, it was like that. Okay, so I was trying to show my desktop, but it won't let me do that. So, anyways, we
Oh,
got
it should be show your whole desktop.
yeah. I
That should be an option.
in Zoom. Where is
Share, and
whiteboard?
then the first item in the upper left
Oh,
should be
screen. That's screen.
screen.
is-
Yeah. Do that.
All right, screen would be this. Is that my desktop?
There you are.
Oh, okay.
That's everything.
All right. So you
The only
think-
thing I can't tell you is how to resize the system monitor gadget.
Okay.
Oh, it may be constrained by, if you've got fences or something like that, it may be constrained by it.
That could be. Yes, and I do have fences. I did purchase this. I love fences.
Yeah. So as long as you don't resize your fenced area, that may be constraining it.
Right. Okay.
But in any event, you should have the temperatures and everything. And
There's
if you
not-
magnify really large, it should be visible.
Okay, so let me turn that off, and then what was that called again?
System monitor, it will not show up in your programs.
Okay. All
It will
right.
not show up in your programs. And
So-
I don't know how to start it back up once you close it.
You have to go on a task manager, performance.
Oh, do you?
All right, I'll go to downloads and
Yeah.
System Monitor 2.
Yeah.
And I'll oh,
Yeah, you have to go through all that again. Run
Okay.
anyway. That's because that's still in your downloads. And yeah, it'll install a new instance, which means you'll have to reconfigure it if you replace it. If you don't replace it, then the only way I know of to restart it is to restart your Windows session. However, Tim has a good idea. You might be able in Task Manager to restart it.
okay. All right. Enough on this one. We've covered this quite a bit.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob, for walking me through this, and Pete,
All right.
anybody else who wanted to see on how to use this.
Yeah, it doesn't actually do exactly what Pete wanted, but that's as close as I came.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
He was thinking about you, Pete.
Yep, he was.
Hey, he'll do anything for a pineapple.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we should go to our topics that we had out there, and we only got like about a half hour left or so. I pushed out a bunch of topics. Would anyone like to choose something from there that we could cover tonight?
How about second from the last? And why are the first 2/3 of your URLs red highlighted?
Because they came from your FYI that had red highlights in them. That's why. So one of your FYIs that you sent out last week, all the links were all red.
Huh.
And I tried to figure out how to change them. They wouldn't change, and I just said, that's okay. I give things just a little bit of time on doing this stuff and going on. That it's too complicated. I don't need to spend that much time on it. It's okay the way it is.
Beata and Bert, when they send it out, I don't see a copy of it. I only see my original, and the original didn't have that.
I can't explain it. All I know is the one I got, all of the hyperlinks were red.
Hmm.
All right, so you said which one? The
Second from the last.
second from the last. All right, which will be how to disable apps on startup on boot to boost Windows 11.
No. Second from the last on the list. It's how to use file history in 10 and 11.
Okay. File history. Open hyperlink. And how to sync clock. No, we don't want that. Want that. Don't want that. Sorry, I'm closing some of this stuff here.
Well, don't close Zoom.
I'm not going to close Zoom.
I have a funny story. I did that. I closed my browser in one meeting while I was showing something, and I ended up out of the meeting for a while. Didn't even know it.
Oh, I did not copy the hyperlink on that one for whatever reason. Because the one I have here,
It's a Computer World article.
there it is. Sorry, my
We
bad.
got it.
It's there. I just had a brain fart there. Open hyperlink.
I got it in my browser.
Okay, yeah, it was there. All
Okay.
right, boom. Close this ad. It's popping up here.
Yeah.
I only
Sanford,
know,
you need to learn how to use ad blockers.
Yeah. Okay. All right, how to use file history in Windows 10 and 11.
I've only known one person that used or tried using this, and it didn't work out right.
So this is Microsoft's solution to doing backups, is they want you to use file history to make their backups. If I got this right. It's a snapshot mechanism of all the files that users stored in primary folders and directories. So you got to tell it which ones. And I guess the idea is if your system goes awry, you just basically reinstall your system and then pull these file histories from your backups and wherever you keep it, like in OneDrive, which is, I believe, where they really want you to keep it all. And then you'll have all your system right back. Is that the logic? Am I correct here?
That seems to be it, but the one person I know that used it, somebody else set it up for her, and they talked her into buying a terabyte flash drive, which was always plugged in.
Okay.
And I think it was set or scheduled to do an automatic update, backup, whatever the hell it does, at least once a day. But it never worked correctly and I don't know why. I didn't have time to figure out what the hell was going on.
So they walk you through on the discussion about it, and it's about, taking a snapshot of your folders and local OneDrive content, and then putting that snapshot somewhere.
My impression.
They said that they say that in here they say the bad news is that Windows 10 offers more snapshot coverage than Windows 11. Go figure. You need to make sure you turn on file history and targeting snapshots. Now, by default, it's turned off. Well, if they want you to use it, why would they turn it off?
Well, it's like the regular Windows 7 backup program that's in 10 and 11 is turned off. You got to go in to set it up. Now, the only thing I can think of personally using this, I'll call it a concept, is between system image backups, which you should do at least once a month, you might do this so that you have probably the equivalent of a differential backup. And then if disaster strikes, you'd restore the last image backup you did, and then use this snapshot, if that's what you want to call it, to be able to restore whatever content it had with little, if any, loss.
One additional use that Microsoft said that this would have, if you're working on a file, there's a previous version that is in file history, and it saves previous versions at certain intervals if you set it up to do that. So if you mess everything up, or if the computer goes down while you're working, you don't lose all your work. You can go back to the previous version.
Okay, that's a setting like in Word, Excel, and I think the same thing exists in LibreOffice and maybe a few of the other Office competitor products.
Yeah, except that your previous versions will now live in your file history.
Okay.
And there's supposed to be some benefit to that versus having your previous versions in OneDrive.
Okay.
These days, I think Microsoft is leaning more toward trying to put you into OneDrive for that.
They're trying to put you in a OneDrive for everything.
Yes. All right, so they say you got to configure the file history via the control panel.
Mm-hmm.
And there ain't much of that
The other
left.
thing that they recommend is that you're going to save the stuff onto preferably like a USB stick, and that you should turn on BitLocker on that USB stick. If you have BitLocker turned on C drive, then you should absolutely turn it on this USB stick, and then it's not going to prompt you about BitLocker anymore.
And also, they do not recommend a flash drive. They recommend an actual dedicated hard drive of several terabytes.
Okay.
Well, the other
because
thing about
you will use up the space.
The bad thing about that aspect is it's dangerous leaving any storage USB device plugged in when you're not really using it, because you end up, if you get hit by malware, it gets infected also.
I'm sure they know that.
Especially ransomware.
Same thing would happen to the flash drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if you got hit with one of those, the moment you plug that device in, it's going to get infected anyways.
Well, I mean, if you got infected and it's not plugged in, you leave it out and use it whenever you recover, possibly from restoring a system image.
Right. As long as you know that you're infected and you can go through those steps.
Right.
I agree with you.
Right.
All right. So this article does a decent job discussing the whys and hows. And let's see, network drives, map them, add network location, the lower right. So you turn on file history, tell it where the target's going to be. And I guess, I don't know, do you make it run?
Now here's a section I didn't see before about the frequency and other advanced settings. Because the one just above it that you just scrolled past says once an hour that it would do some backup. Opposite direction. Yeah. Go down further.
Yeah, well, you can configure the frequency. In other words, how often it does it.
Right.
And this gentleman in this article does discuss here the ramifications of doing it. If your snapshot is 40 gigs and you tell it to do every hour, that means you're going to get 24 snapshots done. That's a lot. So it does everything. It doesn't look for just changes. It doesn't do incrementals. It does the entire,
Yeah.
whatever the content is.
Right.
Okay,
And
well,
that
go ahead.
starts wasting a lot of disk space.
Yeah, and where does this history come from? Yeah, but this seems like a very sloppy. It's almost like Macrium Reflect
Well,
in a
no,
way,
what this is
That's
like,
where you're just backing up all this stuff all at once, and you can't just back up parts of it as you could on an incremental.
right, unless you buy the license. But
Right.
the impression I'm getting, this is like a restore point, but you can go into restore point and add additional areas to the restore point as well, and they're stored on your local drive versus on a separate drive. So now the question becomes comparing restore points and this file history gizmo that they've come up with.
Yeah.
Maybe I can add something to all this.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I've had a client to try and use this, and it never worked.
Really?
That they back up to an external Western Digital drive, in theory, and they'd come back, and there was nothing there.
That's what I found on that other person's flash drive that they were using. Nothing.
When it comes to Office, if you set it the setting at the top of the screen to go to OneDrive, it'll set up multiple versions for you in OneDrive. But the file history, I've never had the occasion to work.
That's why when I saw it on the list, I thought, let's discuss this a little bit.
Yep. So that's two people of say nay, nay, nay.
Well, so, and the situation was with BitLocker, with the situation I saw, and it's tried it over and over again, and different hard drives, didn't matter.
Wow. It's worse than I thought. Because I only knew the one person. They only had the one flash drive, a terabyte flash drive, and it doesn't sound good. That's
Well,
my
I think,
opinion.
originally I thought that this program was going to keep the history on the internal hard drive.
Oh God, that would be
But,
terrible.
right.
No.
And so, if I'm not aware you could set it to go to OneDrive exactly, and nor would it be appropriate.
Well, you could go to OneDrive, I think. You can go to a flash drive or external hard drive. But in any
Yeah,
case,
yes, but OneDrive, normally people may have 1 terabyte,
right. Oh,
and
wait a
that
minute.
gets used up pretty quick when you're trying to do this.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I can understand that quite easily, Nat, and I agree with you on that. Those that have as much as a terabyte, but those would be mostly Office users for the Microsoft 365. Most everybody else who has a OneDrive probably has the original 7 gigabytes of space they give you free.
Well, if you have a service from them, 1 terabyte is about the normal that you get with it with Office.
Right. But I mean, that's only for the Office users who go that terabyte.
Well, and that may be what the concept was, but I mean, we understand that we've had different kinds of backups over the years. The Windows 7 backup, the fact that they've left it there, sort of is full backup, or maybe you just have to go through the settings capability to restore your system.
Well,
But when it comes to your data, copying the files directly is probably still the best choice.
In more FYI, I put in 4 articles about the Windows 7 backup program, and I've started showing articles on how to verify, because Windows 7 backup in 10 and 11 has no auto verification. You have to do other methods to verify you had a good backup. If you don't do a verification to prove you had a good backup, you go about your business. As soon as you need that backup because of a disaster, you might find yourself SOL, and that used to be the history of doing backups on Windows way back. Go ahead, Pete.
When I think of file history, I think of sharing or having multiple people accessing the same file and editing it. And on the automatic saves, you can revert back to what it was before the last person changed the file.
That's the way I would look at it too.
So I mean, that's file sharing to an extent, but again, if you put in file history and it doesn't save anything, you can't go back to anything.
Right. I understand that. But the only reason I would do a file history type deal is if I could go back to previous version that I did or 2 versions back to be able to correct from an original what I did wrong going forward and not have all the stuff that I did.
For that, you have to use incremental backups.
Now, versioning on a file, I look at Autodesk, and I can go back and I can have a file that I've worked on for 2 days, and I've made changes all along, and now I find out that I need to go back to the original one. I can go into my file history on Autodesk. I can click open that one, and all the changes I made over the last 2 days are gone from the desktop. That's file history.
Well, there aren't that many applications that give you that kind of versioning type of backup facility. And it's usually within the individual application. The closest thing you come to it is incremental backups, where at least once a day or more, you do an incremental backup to get snapshots that give you a finer grain of being able to restore up to a point and get what you want.
Now, if I look at my 360 and it doesn't autosave when I'm working on the OneDrive.
Okay.
It does an autosave every about 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I should be able to, and I haven't tried it, go back 6 minutes back and get a file if it's correct.
Right.
The autosave before the last 2 saves.
But a lot of program applications don't have that feature.
Correct. I will agree with you on that point. So if a operating system is coming up with that feature in that name, that's how it should perform.
I agree with that.
Not as a backup for the whole stinking system.
Right.
For what you're working on right now.
Pete, with autosave, does each save with autosave overwrite? Excuse me. Does it overwrite the previous save, or does it preserve the previous saves?
I believe it preserves a few. A few. Not every single one all the way back. Otherwise, it would be incrementally infinite in length.
Right.
It works like a restore point. Depending on the amount of space you allot to a restore point for storage, once it fills up that whole area, it starts deleting the oldest ones and continues on roundabout way of giving you restore points.
Now, does Office autosave work that same way? Or does it overwrite?
Bert
I
would
am
probably be-
not, I believe it's supposed to work that way, especially if you're working in a group function.
Okay,
If you're working off a drive in a group function, it's supposed to work that way.
okay.
So your manager can go back and throw away all the changes you've done that are not the company policy.
So a certain number of autosaves, a certain number of versions are autosaved.
I believe.
Okay,
So as an example there, in Excel, if you go into file info, there's a
Yeah.
thing there that says version history.
okay, so there is a version history.
And the one I'm looking at right now shows me about 8 different items that I've been working on.
Okay, so it does preserve it.
So
Okay,
it may
can
not
we-
be perfect, but let's,
We need to move
Yep.
on. And I wanted to know, we got enough time for one more thing that's on my list? Anything poke anybody's eye out? Harry?
The comparison between extenders and boosters.
Ah, extenders and boosters. That's a good one. Yeah, let's open that hyperlink. And then we'll do this, do that, we'll do this, do this. Which I really don't know what the difference is between extenders and boosters, but it should be interesting to figure this out. What's a booster? So it takes your existing signal and boosts it or amplifies it. Boosters come in both wireless and wired formats. I don't know.
Okay, so back on the mainland, because I was in a very rural area where my Wi-Fi was, or my cell phone signal was very, very bad. I had a booster antenna, which I used for my Wi-Fi, for my phone.
Right.
And
You
there was
sell
basically one antenna outside the house pointed at the local tower, and then an amplifier between, and then a broadcast antenna on the inside of the house to broadcast the signal that the tower was sick. It did no processing. It was just an amplifier for the signal. So that.
So they say in this particular case, it'd be like a wire running from your router to this device, a long wire, and then you're going to put that device somewhere. So it boosts the signal in that location. It's
right,
but it's still coming right from the router itself.
Right. So in my wireless application with the cell phone, that's the same way.
Right.
So the antenna on the inside is acting as the router. The amplifier is passing everything through, and the cell phone amplifier on the antenna on the input inside is just broadcasting it. But you still need the cell phone on both sides to create a path.
Right. I think the coverage area on a booster is less than the coverage area on an extender, because an extender acts like a brand new bridge, if you will, or repeater.
A booster does not repeat the signal. An
Right.
extender does not amplify the signal, but only repeats it.
Correct. Boy.
Okay.
Want
All
to say
right,
that?
that makes
Hey,
sense.
say that again, Bob.
A booster amplifies the signal, but does not repeat it. An extender repeats the signal, so it can go someplace farther away, but it does not necessarily amplify it.
Okay, all right. I like that. You really, that kind of puts it right where it needs to be. But
So
in
you-
most cases, I would just use an extender these days.
Yeah, they use different technology and they're used for different purposes.
Right,
Yeah. So
right,
you typically use a booster when you're in a commercial building that's got a full steel wall sides and full steel top that the cell phone coverage cannot get through.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you're just forming a bridge around the shell of the building so that the people inside can actually use the
Yeah,
wire.
you're taking a weak signal and strengthening it.
So an extender would probably be useful for people who have a house and they can't get from one floor to the other with the signal.
Correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, like a ranch style house.
And there's also something else that happens. When you use an extender, you very often will get some lag or delay. Whereas if you use an amplifier, you won't get as much of that, if any.
right. Because an extender needs to talk back to the source,
Mhm.
back and forth. And then you're communicating to the extender, the extender's communicating wirelessly via a lower power setting or whatever, a signal strength to the base, the router.
Yeah, it sets up it sets up a new channel.
Right.
So basically, with these people that are buying these four-part deals for their bigger houses are basically just getting extenders, which are making a network within the house.
Correct. They're getting a mesh network,
Mesh network, right?
which is basically a bunch of extenders that communicate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's distinguish between repeaters and extenders. Repeaters are the ones that are wireless. Extenders are hardwired.
Okay.
And extenders will therefore get less lag.
I think this is just playing on words.
No.
But it talks
No,
here
no,
about
no. Going back to my history with Sears, we had extenders for the wireless signals in the buildings. Each one of the extenders was hardwired to a rack.
Yeah.
And the way the system was created was that you could take your laptop and not do anything anywhere in the complex to it, and it would actually bridge across and switch to a different extender if that extender was stronger.
Yeah.
That was a true mesh system.
Yeah.
You never changed your IP address for your location.
Mhm.
Anywhere, independent upon which node you were connected to. So, extender in a house, you typically get your router, and you got those 5 wire ports in the back. You will take one of those wired ports and wire it across the house to the extender module and use it as the input, and it will automatically route through the primary router to go through. The primary router handles the IP address handing out.
and if you don't use a wire, you could set the extender up in bridge mode. That would do the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you lose speed in bridge mode.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Because the local speed from the router to the extender and wired is 100 megabits.
Okay.
Or even a gigabit now on some of them.
So a booster works best if you got dead zones in a house or in an area, is what they say here in the article.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it also sounds like from the discussion, it should be boosters or extenders or repeaters, because there's 3 different functions.
Right.
Now, on a lot of the newer hardware, in the setup, you can set it up as with one of the 3. when you actually when you actually have one that's like a gaming one, that's got a lot of bandwidth, when you go into the setup of the router or the wireless hub or whatever, you can actually change it in software to change the function of the hardware.
Got it.
Okay, that's good.
Good subject here. Very good one.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other last questions?
I just want to make one little remark about setting the Windows time and using the settings app to do that.
Yes.
I have to do that almost constantly because I switch between Linux and Windows. And every time you do that, you get a 4-hour increment
Yes.
in Windows,
That's
unless you do some very special changes in Windows, which most of us wouldn't want to do.
Doesn't
It
Windows automatically go and poll for an update on the time?
nope.
No, you have to actually manually go into the settings with a right click on your Wi-Fi icon and then hit the sync button, sync now.
Yeah.
Otherwise it will sync on a schedule, but that schedule is something like every 2 to 10 hours.
Anytime you go into Linux on that computer, it screws up the internal CMOS clock.
Mhm.
And then when you go back into Windows, Windows doesn't know any better. Now, theoretically, you should be able to sync up to a network time port, but sometimes that doesn't always work.
You just sync up to internet time is what you're doing.
Yeah, and the bad part is it doesn't always work.
Yeah, it doesn't because it has to connect with Microsoft servers in order to work in Windows.
Yeah.
And usually that works, but it works about as often as updating the Windows Store works. Sometimes that fails.
And I've been playing with that problem for years and years. It doesn't matter which version of Windows you got. As soon as you go into a Linux on the same machine, the clock gets screwed up. And when you go back into Windows, one of the first things you got to remember to do is look at the clock and adjust the time by resyncing it.
There is something you can do in Linux, which is a technical thing that changes how it reads the time of the CMOS clock, and so that it won't reset the system time. Because Linux is using universal time code, Windows is using something else.
Okay.